Hello, hello.
Hello. Cool. Can you guys hear me well?
Yep, yep. What about myself?
Yeah. Not bad at all. Pretty good. Marco, can you do a mic check?
Yes, I'm here.
All good. All good. Okay. We still are waiting for Kate. Um, and I just swapped my microphone. Yeah, we're just waiting for Kate. But I guess we can kind of like start to get into it. Very happy to be back again, as usual, with my co-host Marco, and we have two great speakers today. Um, Kate Lane from IONET, and we have another great speaker from K-Vents. His name is Radu Berta. I hope I pronounced that right. He's the head of growth, and today we're talking about agents. It's the Agents Unplugged bi-weekly deep dive into what's happening in the space. And as usual, we're going to go off of script and have a great conversation. So, first of all, I'd like to invite everybody to just give a quick 1 to 2 minute introduction about you and the project that you represent, and then we go into we just kick it off and we go into talks.
I can start. Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. My name is Kate, and I lead partnerships at IONET. So, for those who may be unfamiliar, IONET is a DPIN that has built a network of over 300,000 GPUs available internationally. So, we work with generative AI companies, deep AI companies, and many others in the Web3 space to bring them the GPUs and other tools that they need to build. Excited for this chat today.
All right.
Cool.
Uh, yeah, to introduce myself, my name's Radu. I'm the head of growth here at Quant AI. Um, for those of you that might not know what Quant does, we're an AI-powered asset management, quantitative asset management platform. We have multiple quant strategies, and we have AI agents that constantly analyze the market in order to make the most educated trading decisions to constantly generate profits for people that allocate capital to our strategies.
Very cool. I'll continue and then you can finish, Yannick. I'm Marco. I'm head of AI at Oasis. And at Oasis, we bring TEs to people without all of the trust execution environment complexity. So you don't need to think about remote attestations, about reproducible builds, key management. You just deploy on the network or use our frameworks, and you can have autonomous, trustless agents or on chain privacy, which was kind of the big thing that we launched many years ago. And it's still the only chain with on chain privacy and an EVM environment.
Very cool. And my name is Yannick. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Swarm Network. We're building a multi-agent collaboration framework and a truth protocol, on top of which a bunch of swarms are going to be launched, of which the first one is Rollup News, which you can use. We just released a new version, and I'm sure we'll touch on it at one point. Um, yeah, so today what we're going to be talking about is agents as usual. However, I've been kind of out of the loop, but I just did a quick read up on things, and I just see that Llama has launched this behemoth of a literal behemoth of a model. And I actually haven't been aware of the buzz around it, but Marco, you brought it up pre-call, and maybe you can tell us what's up.
I actually haven't seen it. So what I was thinking is Google has been crushing it on all kinds of fronts. So I haven't seen the latest one. What I was thinking is Gemini 2.5 is just super impressive. And what excited me the most recently was actually A2Ace. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. This agent to agent protocol that they announced.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
one of
A to
their
A.
yeah, it's one
Right.
of their newest innovation. I think it was announced just on Monday this week.
Yeah, exactly. And we discussed last time quite a bit MCPs, and I think even the time before, where obviously I come kind of from the privacy verifiable compute side of things, and for me MCPs just, they scream insecure, because you just trust this server operator to provide you access to a tool, and kind of that's what MCPs is, right? Or are they are this agent to tool protocol, which was already very cool, because you finally have a protocol that you can build against, and it's rather interoperable. But now Google comes around with A2A. So yes, it does not replace MCPs, but it does feel like the next step in evolution. And A2As, as the name says, is just agent to agent. So it's not directly agent to tools. And they do kind of want to collaborate with all of the MCP stuff, but it is very exciting. And I have to say, like, whenever I see these announcements, I put them kind of on my to-do list to check them out. But there's just so much happening at the same time, and I really feel for all of the kind of agent and swarm builders like you guys, Yannick, where it's like, man, there's so much new stuff happening. How do you even stay up to date? Like, you could have now started building these orchestration agents for MCP servers, and then suddenly you have Google announcing A2A, and now you need to figure out, hey, is this actually better? Do I not need to have these orchestration things? Then you have, of course, the Agent SDK from OpenAI that I've played around quite a bit. Got kind of to its limitations quite quickly, because it's pretty much just this handover script that helps you um, hand over tasks from one agent to another. But of course, it did lack this, yeah, outside of the LLM action type of support. Um, yeah, it's really too much, I have to say. Like, it's getting impossible to test out everything and see what works for you. So at some point you will need to commit either, like, hey, I stick with all of the OpenAI SDKs and APIs, or I now go into the Google kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, since we're so close to the topic, right? Like we have our own frameworks for agent to agent collaboration within our kind of like microcosm, and within our clusters and swarms, which we think works really well, and in our environment it works very well. And I don't think that there's going to be, it would be nice to see like one unifying standard that everybody just unanimously agrees to use, but I think that's gonna be pretty hard, because if you compare like the, let's say, the mentality of the space in general, the AI agent space in general, it's very commercial. It's like super commercialized. Everybody is trying to do these kinds of things for, not purely for finding the best solution, but also kind of like making sure that they're innovating and that they're pushing, like pushing not just new tech, but they're also hitting narratives, and they're branding, and they're getting like a nice social buzz. Like you can see this thing with the MCP, for example, right? Like we've talked about the MCP thing um recently, and now like after the hype of the MCP is kind of like started to fade out a little bit, people start to criticize it, and they see so many things wrong with it, and it's not a really unifying standard. It's just another kind of standard that could become something. And now they're having all of these discussions around authorization and so on. I think the same goes for these agent to agent and collaboration frameworks. I think in the end, like you want to interface with a certain environment, like for example Google, and what they're really doing is like they're just leveraging standards that what already exists, like HTTP, SSE, JSON RPC, and like the stuff that like essentially enterprise IT, the enterprise IT stack, so it's easier for people to integrate with it. And it's, like it's not really something new. It's just like defining within their ecosystem, saying like, hey, like these are the standards that we think you should use. But those standards might not be the best standards to use in every single scenario. It just becomes so that if I want to interface with somebody that is using their standard, I'll probably have to adhere to their standard. But then the vice versa is also true, right? Like if you um, if you are using whatever, like open AI standard or your own standard, and you want to communicate with an agent that is built on a different standard, then you will have to either adapt, or that agent has to adapt, or you have to meet in the middle, or you just say fuck it, like we're incompatible, like we're not communicating with each other. But I don't think that that's really going to be the case. What's really going to be interesting to see is like, where do people land on in the end, and where's the real utility, um like where's the real utility for these things. And I think that is the big question, like what is the true utility of an agent to agent communication framework, right? Because like what I see, is that it's, I mean, yeah, okay, like cross vendor collaboration, and like modality agnostic, and it's secure by design, and whatever, it supports like tasks that have like a life cycle, so you can get like real-time feedback and artifact tracking. Okay, and so where's the payment? Okay, and so like where's our like true whatever security, where's our heartbeat, where's the autonom like where's the like autonomy of these agents, like what, like like it's not there yet. So like you will see more and more of these frameworks, I believe. And I think it's going to be super hard to land on just one thing. It's like, what I was trying to get at, actually, sorry, I know I'm rambling on, but what I was trying to get at is that standards are created because you're looking for a solution which is in kind of like in line with like becoming a public good, right? Like all of the standards that we use on the internet, they're just fucking standards that nobody, like nobody actually really capitalizes on. Maybe now, like security certificates and so on, but you can make your own security certificate like HTTPS. Like you don't need to pay somebody to do that for you. But yeah, the mentality now is different. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if you agree, but like it's super fucking commercial. So you get like one of these things from OpenAI, you get one of these things from Google, and so on. Like, um, I think it's a different game now. So like there's so many forces at play. So how the hell are we gonna supposed to land on one thing? It's just so seems such a complex thing.
Yeah, but I also don't see it being any other way than commercial, because they have the models and they just need someone to build like cool applications finally with these models. And for that, you will need all kinds of interoperability things. You will need access to tools, access to agent handoff. So I don't mind that it's commercial. My problem is still, where do you start as a new builder? Like maybe you have a specific recommendation, like starting today, and you have an idea for this. You have a cool use case where you need multiple agents to work together. Like, where do you start?
Yeah, maybe I'm gonna pass it on to either Kate or Radu first before I start to go on a fucking like rambling on again.
All right, all right. I think definitely it's the first step would be to really define your application, just because it's very, very important to select which type of LLM you're going to work with. As we all know, some of them have different capabilities. Some excel at a few things, while others excel at other things. Um, but other than that, as you guys said before, and I totally agree with it, the secret, and it seems to be the same issue that kind of came up in Web3, interoperability. So back in 2022, we were talking about chains being interoperable. Now we're talking about agents being interoperable. I think we're at a place in history when solutions have to work with each other by default, because there's no one solution meets all, especially when we're talking about having multiple AI agents interact. um, it definitely has to be interoperable. That's my opinion on it, and passing it on to Kate.
I think I have just a follow-up question, which is, as you have sort of like harkening back to what you were saying around interoperability with chains. So you have layer 0, you have Chainlink CCIP. So, how, I guess what I'm curious to know is how do builders define or sort of select which standard they want to use, because it seems like a pretty impactful decision set that you're going to have to make. So my question is, how do you make that choice? And also, I guess a follow up is, do you think that there is going to be sort of one standard, or rather, to your point, um, is it really going to be use case dependent?
Yeah, that's a that's indeed a good question. That's indeed a good question. I think it depends on who you are too, right? It's like indeed like where's the true utility for you? And I think Radu made a really good point, which is like just start at defining a thing and be really rational about it too, right? Like, are you a retail user that wants to use AI to become more efficient at doing your job? Or do you want to use AI to become more efficient at day trading? Or, like, is there, and then if you settle on a thing, it's like also the question is like, is it really going to help you? And is it really going to allow you to, not just free up time, but also become better as a human at what you do? And if the answer to that is yes, then I think you can start really, really simple. Like you can go from um ideation phase to like kind of like product testing, like just you trying to figure out whether it works well, like within a fraction of half a day really, if you know which tools to use. We're trying to really simplify it where you can just literally prompt a cluster of agents and it like pre I mean, not pre. It generates for you like a whole set of agents and it chooses which tools it's going to use, and can use and so on. So like, I think that is for us like one of the focus points is like just try and lower the barrier to entry as much as possible, and then have people really play around with a complex system which they think is going to work well. But like more often than not, probably you'll figure out it's like, hmm, I have this super complex system, but actually it's it's not supposed to be that complex, right? Like really, like if you think about it, I always go by this kind of like mantra or like mindset of mine where I say, okay, if I really can simplify things down, like if I can really dumb things down to like an infographic, for example, like a really complex concept, then I've really understood it. And I think the same is true with like any kind of task that you're trying to do. It's like usually you just want to be faster and more precise, but maybe you don't want to actually like generate more information. That's not always the solution. So also to really think about, like the workflow and the process, because in the end, agents are not that different from us as of now, because they're large language models, right? Okay, like there's this argument where, they are just, ones or zeros, and we can be ones and zeros, like quantum physics style. But essentially the medium, right, which is language, is the same. So yeah, so what, like, how would you do this job, or how would you, maybe a good mental model or a good way to think through, like multi-agent systems or just agents in general is like, if you would hire somebody to do the job for you, what would you want them to do? And then define that, and then create an agent, and then give the agent information and see if it works. And then if that works, you go and pass that information off to the second one, and then you just create a workflow. I mean, that's how I think about it usually. I can give you a concrete example too. So for example, so Rollup News is a really cool D app, which is purely powered by a agent swarm, which is called the Truth Swarm. And what it allows you to do is you can tag Rollup News under any thread on Twitter, or any post for that matter, and you can tag rollup lower dash news, add the word rollup, and you'll receive a information rollup which consists of all the claims that have been made in that piece of content, whether it's image or video or text. And then it goes through like a very rigorous verification process, and eventually it's brought on chain. So what we did was we created a swarm and we tested it one by one. But I don't want to talk about the complexity of the swarm. I want to talk the about like how we started to iterate on this using an agent or multiple agents. So what we said was like, what would be really cool is if we could get somebody or an agent to essentially like analyze hot topics of all the kinds of rollups that people are creating, and then just choose like one or two tags, let's say like Trump, tariffs, and China, and then read all of the rollups, so like all of the interesting stuff that people have been interested in on Twitter, and then create like a thread out of it and post that stuff. Like it's something really practical. It would take somebody like, I don't know, maybe like an hour of work, maybe even longer. But now we have all of this data there in a pipeline, right? So like I get all the like viral posts and threads that are about this topic over the last like whatever 45 minutes. So it's really actual and really current. And then I just get an agent to, like extract that information, propagate that information, and give me an output. And then based off that output, I can see whether that's something that I like and whether the capability of that single agent is sufficient, or do I now need to start to add other agents, right? Okay, we want to generate an image for this thread. Okay, let's add the agent that is, able to take the context and then generate an image, or maybe let's just add a tool to the agent. Well, let's see what works better. Like turns out that if you add another agent, you can not just create one image, but you can create 5 images, which is, like one image for each post in the thread. Is really cool. So really just to go like at it on a really practical level, and then just finding the tools that work really well for you. It can be as simple as just going to ChatGPT and creating a GPT, to be honest. But like getting started is probably the most important thing, and then thinking about it correctly, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. Actually, I kept thinking like if the LLM is your USP, then you don't have an USP. So if it's really that big of a difference, if you're choosing Anthropic or OpenAI, uh, you have to rethink. Like this really cannot be the core of everything. So actually, you really need to kind of build your product with a real use case in mind, with a real problem that you're solving. And then honestly, the differences between which agent framework you chose are hopefully going to be marginal, at least in the beginning, until everything is established. So I think that actually makes more sense. And it should make it a bit less scary for new builders, because wherever you start, the intelligence sure is going to be noticeable depending on the provider, but the use case and the USP should be somewhere else.
Yeah. Radu, how are you guys thinking about this over at Events?
Is it just me? I don't know if I can hear Radu.
Yeah, I'm going to ask. Yeah, Radu, we cannot hear you. Maybe you can try again. Unmute and say something. No, for some reason we cannot hear you, man. Maybe rejoin the space and re-request. Sometimes we have this. Well, not sometimes. Almost every
Yeah,
single time
every time.
we have this annoying issue with with X, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's not really intended to be a podcasting platform after all, right? Yeah, and I was actually just looking at Grok as well. It seems like they have released a new model too. I'm not sure, but as like I saw some shilling regarding what kind of benchmarks they were hitting, and they were supposedly hitting all of them. I think it was actually Mario and I follow posted about this Grok 3. Yeah, Grok 3 benchmarks. Like I think it's a hard shill, but they were saying that they, let me see what it was. Um, I think they actually hit like most of the benchmarks at like maximum score. But you never know. Oh, by the way, did you also see that there was like there was accusations of Facebook faking their benchmarks?
Yeah, what's
Yes,
going
and I
on there?
totally believe it.
Hey, Radu. Yeah, I think we can hear you now.
All right, perfect, perfect. So I'll to answer the previous question, um, we here at once, I won't get too much into the tech and how it runs in the background, but on a surface level, so to say, we have one main AI agent, which is a sort of the trading pod leader, which then interrogates a total of six other agents. We have uh, came to the conclusion that in order to execute a task as efficiently and as effectively as possible and expect sort of a consistency in the quality of the response, it's better to delegate to agents one very specific task. So if we have an agent that analyzes, for example, the best place to place the trading order in terms of liquidity. We have another one which analyzes market sentiment. We have another one which analyzes risk exclusively, and all of those agents feed their information, the synthesized version, into the agent that takes the actual trading decisions. This is how we chose to define the architecture so far, just to make sure we're efficient and consistent in terms of efficiency. And we're actually very close to releasing the DeFi version of this, where the pod leader agent, so to say, has full rights to take trading decisions with the specific pod fund, based on, of course, on the strategy that we choose and we ask it to operate on, but as well on the information that it received from the other AI agents sort of working under it. So the way we really see it is we sort of automated each individual job that would be in a traditional investment pod uh, management team.
So it's also a very practical, like one by one iteration, right? It's like, hey,
Yeah, yeah.
where's the requirement for this thing? Let's build it, let's test it, and let's move on to the next one. Yeah, so I think in general we can come to a conclusion that it's, it's not really about complexity right at the start. You can create very complex systems, but um so there's this funny thing, like I hear a lot of people talk about emergent behavior. And I've actually also spoken about emergent behavior in complex systems on the spaces before. It was actually due to a question of somebody, like one of the community members asked whether it was possible for a complex system which consists of multiple swarms to be able to have some kind of like emergent behavior in terms of like what it can and cannot do. Maybe unexpected behavior is actually a better word. I was thinking about that. It's like people tend to put like these really heavy words on things, like for example LLMs, like, oh, like LLMs exhibit emergent behavior. Oh, like agent clusters exhibit emergent behavior. But actually, I think that more often than not, it's not really emergent behavior. It's actually surprising behavior. But if you would really, like do the math and rationalize through and understand better, as we're starting to see now, where all of these, like LLM companies starting to like actually look under the hood and like I like publish these papers and reports on what's actually happening. So they now start to back propagate what these things are actually doing. And then they realize like, okay, it's not that emergent behavior, but rather it's more surprising behavior, right? So yes, there's like this benefit or hypothetical benefit where like really complex systems, especially decentralized ones, can exhibit emergent behavior. That's for sure. But I wouldn't start there, and I wouldn't start with complexity, because in the end, you want a system to be able to do a good job. And like you don't start a company by hiring 1,000 people, right? You start a company with, let's say, like 4 of your best friends, and then they become your VPs, and then like your C level, and then you start to hire managers and staff and so on, and you slowly branch out. Like I don't know any company that, like within like, that just said like, yo, we gotta hire 1,000 people, like that's usually not how great businesses are made. So I also doubt that there's gonna be this like one shot, like 1,000 agent clusters that are gonna be really, really efficient. And you can definitely make them, but then, like how are you gonna debug them? Like there's like so, like the routing for task is gonna be so random, and like you issue a task today and might go to like this cluster of agents, and then tomorrow you do the same thing and does a completely different thing. It's like good luck debugging that. So yeah, simplicity in the end can be our good friend. So let's start a little bit of FUD here, shall we, about Facebook, because I've been reading about a couple of pretty interesting things. The first one is that they actually manufactured their benchmarks and that a bunch of people resigned. And I just checked the roll up that we have on that, and it's just substantiated. So apparently there were some people that kind of like left the company because they were saying that the company was, they were asked to not be honest about what their technology could do. And then also, there are some accusations about Facebook allegedly collaborating with China to monitor Taiwan and Hong Kong, and not monitor, the states, but monitor the citizens in those countries and what they're saying about the government and so on. And then also that they were involved in some other tricky business. So yeah, they seem to be in the spotlight. I was wondering if you guys knew anything else about it.
I actually heard about the same news that you just mentioned. I don't know if the accusations are true or not, but definitely if there's any truth to that, it's a very strange position to be in. What I want to point out and get your opinions on it is the fact that I think the next generation of leading AIs cannot of or leading LLMs, so to say, cannot come from a company that does not already have vast amounts of data. So Meta can be a possible long-term competitor in the space, Google as well. And we've seen what happened with I don't remember the name of the company, but basically,
DeepSeek.
no, I was going to say about, Elon Musk selling Twitter to its AI
Oh, right, right,
company.
right, right,
Yeah,
right.
because at the end of the day, you can only do so much with the tech, but the most essential thing is having vast amount of data so the AI can study it and learn and adapt from that and ensure more accurate responses when it comes to understanding human behavior and what humans expect. So I'm trying to understand what's your take on that. And sorry to, I know it's kind of besides the point that we started from.
Not at all. It's not at all. This is why we're organizing this space, to jump into these kinds of conversations. Um, yeah, I would like to hook into that, and I'm sure Marco has something to say about this too. But you have a really interesting notion there, right? Because you can actually see that there's other companies that are trying to compete, and that it starts to probably become less about the base parameters that are anyways a lot of the times being published in open source for the open source model, so anybody can use them and build on top of them, right? So hypothetically speaking, it should become easier and easier to create a base model or a language model. But what I think the play is, and I don't really know how to answer the question, but I just put my 2 cents in. What I think the play is, for example, for companies like Elon Musk, right, Twitter and XAIs, is they're playing the capex game, right? It's just capex upon capex upon capex, which means like they always need to increase size to get more capital in, and that's the game that they play. They're playing like a different game, which is not just purely focused on the technology. The technology is the poster child for them being able to get more funds in and spend those funds. Those funds, like most of those funds, they're actually being spent on hardware, right? Like hardware, property, IP, like the whole fucking machine that's behind it is like probably the tech is just like, I don't know, like 5%. So like the game here is like very commercial and very, on a very high level, very institutional level. But I do indeed think that there's gonna be these silent killers that just come out of nowhere and they're just like fuck up the whole scene. Like DeepSeek was kind of that, but you can see how fast, like how fast they can crawl back up to their feet and release, like something equivalent or even better. It's a race. Yeah, Marco, go ahead.
I mean, I think in short, my answer, Radu, is yes, that I do agree. Like, if you don't have access to this massive data, it's going to be very difficult to compete with the big AI projects. That's also why everyone honestly should be very aware of how they are sharing this data further with ChatGPT, etc. Like, whatever you type in, this is new data that they're getting from you, and you're actually paying for it by the subscription. So yeah, just my 2 cents. But the other point that you mentioned, Yannick, is compute, and we have a hardware expert here, right? And I want to ask Kate, anyways. I mean, you have a very cool view on this thing because from my perspective, most are currently just using APIs. But obviously, there are also quite a few that are actually renting GPUs and building new stuff. They're fine tuning models. So maybe you can share some things of who are these silent killers and what are they doing, kind of on the fine tuning side of things that actually need compute.
Yeah, thanks. That this is actually a really good natural plug for IO Intelligence. So IO Intelligence has launched in February, and this is a product that we brought to market because we noticed that a lot of builders just simply wanted access to inference through, let's say, DeepSeek or some of the open models like Llama. However, they are either, startups that are super price sensitive, or they don't want to give, like, let's say, the Llama and Mark Zuckerberg their data. So this is where IO Intelligence comes in, because we've built and hosted these models on our GPU network, rather than, say, like DeepSeek's, enabling privacy and cost efficiency for the user. So we're seeing lots of teams both, building agents, tapping into these APIs. But in coming months, I think we're going to be offering the capabilities for exactly what you said, for teams to bring their own model, and fine tune their own model. So this could be bringing an entirely new model, or fine tuning and adjusting up some of the open source models that are already available today. So those are like two of the biggest requests that we're getting from teams today. And yeah, I definitely encourage you to check out the platform and play around, and always keep in mind, your privacy sensitivity when you're interacting with, say, ChatGPT. Um, so that's a really, really good shout out there. Yeah, so happy to answer any more questions about IO Intelligence, or sort of what we're seeing from the compute side of as well.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, like what kind of use cases do they have where they need to fine-tune foundational models?
Yep. So this could be for very specific agents, for example. So I'm talking, for example, to a travel company that wants to fine tune a couple, like DeepSeek, um, for a specific, like, travel related use case and application. So that's one. I think that anytime you have an agent that is less of a generalist and more of a specialist in mind, this could be a good use case for, like, fine tuning your models.
Is this something you've considered either at Swarm or at Quants?
Yeah, we do. Um, it just really depends on kind of like what is the net like benefit you can get out of it, right? Like, is it really necessary again to go that route? and it's really attractive. It's like the notion of it is really attractive, but usually with just like like doing just a tiniest amount of fine tuning, or just becoming better at like the controlling the parameters and the master prompt, usually we can already get really far. Yeah, not sure how Radu thinks about that.
For us, it's basically the same thing as you just mentioned. Um, but I want to add this thing because Kate mentioned it before. Privacy is definitely important for us because our quant strategies are definitely proprietary. So we're looking to make sure that our data is safe in terms of what we're teaching the model, and how safe that information is after we feed it to the model.
Nice.
So
Yeah, we should
what
definitely talk after this about actual confidential compute and how to activate it, etc. But yeah, sorry, Kate, I interrupted you.
Oh yeah, I was actually just going to ask those, what kinds of like privacy measures are you taking in place at Quants?
I would not be able to go into very specific methodology that we're using. That's sort of our product and development team that handle those aspects. And of course, we have a few protocols in place, but definitely confidential computing is something of interest to us. And we have been exploring this option in the past. We have various partners, and we're definitely looking to further expand our network. I actually think it's one of the most underrated innovations in terms of privacy that we've seen in the past 4 to 5 years, because I think it's hasn't been much older than that.
Yeah, talking about privacy and security, it's interesting to see um, how much of a misconception is generated right now when people are starting to use like AI agent for coding, and especially like vibe coding stuff, where you see like some people are using like Lovable and Replit, and they are actually like promoting their like, oh, I made this app in like 6 hours. And then if you look at it, you can just like grab their API keys, and you can grab their prompts and so on. It's like they're kind of like oblivious to this thing, right? Like you obviously should go through like a comprehensive kind of like procedure in terms of risk assessment when you're building these kinds of applications, and also regularly evaluate all your deployments, and especially if you are deploying agents for potential vulnerabilities, especially as like you keep updating and keep releasing these agents, because they're always susceptible to certain things, right? So like obviously the more kind of like cloud a certain framework has, or maybe the more devs are working on it, if it's open source, and the more commercial it is, potentially can help you to identify whether people have really thought about like the different types of potential attack vectors and so on. So I think that's like a responsibility that we as um, we as we as builders have. And then obviously Marco and I are a very big proponent of like data privacy and definitely minimization. Like not just the process in collecting like only the essential data, which is essentially like minimization, and then potentially anonymizing it and tokenizing it, but also um, to a certain degree, making certain variables transparent. So there's also this kind of uh, like counterbalance in promotion of trust, while still being able to minimize the kind of like data that flows through any given system. And this can be done through encryption. Obviously, you can encrypt data on both both at rest and in transit to prevent unauthorized access, but that also prevents people from, I mean, kind of like abstracts and obscures away information. So there's this really big debate going on around this topic alone, and it's also really different for each use case, right? It's like okay, I, like roll up news, like we're okay, you can look into the whole process, you can see under the hood, you can see how the models reason, like we put it there, you can see, how, what are the parameters of our agents and so on. It's like if you would want to see that, you'd be able to see that, and we're okay with that. But then, like as Radu said, it's like, yo, we're not comfortable with exposing, what kind of algorithms our agents are using, or what kind of data are they getting from where, because this is our proprietary kind of like, like like framework or tech, right? Like if we start to expose that, make that readily available, we're just cutting off our own arm, so to speak, and it will not be a good business model. So here comes the trouble. You can feel it already. It's like, okay, what should we focus on? Are we going to focus on access control and identity manage, or data privacy and minimization, or whatever, runtime enforcement, or like, are we going to focus more on like customization and adaptability, and do we not give a fuck about what people do? It's like, is it their responsibility, as with the vibe coding stuff and so on? And then obviously the more guardrails you build in, the more confined you become to your model as well, right? Like whether it's in an agent context, or whether it's in like enterprise grade or consumer grade, whatever, like LLM inference and so on. Like you start to become, um, like you start to become a little bit more compact. You impose a little bit more control. But yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about best practices, there are obviously a couple of things people are doing, which is these runtime enforcement layers, like zero trust security models, and then I guess just the whole authorization aspect of it, where there are different solutions and different standards right now. I think like OpenAI's auth model is pretty neat, and something that MCP is, for example, lacking. But yeah, I mean, like there are so many variables, and it's like so different for each scenario. So yeah, I mean, we can go on and on about it.
Yeah, but I think it's gonna be a fun time to look back at. I don't think it's gonna be very long until we have proper security agents, audit agents that don't really cost a lot, and every even vibe coder will use it. I mean, personally, I actually have not encountered that many problems. Like whenever I try to build like a quick MVP, one of the first files that Cursor generates is the git ignore. So there's always a .env example, there's a git ignore, so API keys are very, actually never in my case shared, but I have seen these use cases. And of course, there is way more complexity to this than that. But as I said, I think like security and audits are very much things that can be done very well by LLMs or AI models in general. I think I saw today like someone built an security auditor agent and they competed in a Sherlock competition and they finished like top 10 or top 20. So we're getting there, and those are gonna definitely be very cheap to use. And I'm sure most vibe coders that try to make money with the application will run their applications through those. Of course, no guarantee for actual security, but I don't think it's gonna be that big of a problem moving forward.
Yeah, I think the ultimate goal is like, how can we reach reliability at scale, right? And as generally as possible. And yeah, that indeed requires some kind of like systematic approach. Probably a lot of brain power has to go in it, but I do agree. Probably will end up there pretty soon. And talking about this topic, I've seen a very interesting different types of solutions being made. So we just spoke to Hacken. I just spoke to the founder and CEO of Hacken, the auditing firm, and they showed us something. I don't even know if I can talk about it, but fuck it. They showed us that they were working on a prompt firewall. So it's basically like a prompt firewall that can both be used by builders, but could also be used by users. Where if there would be any kind of like um, kind of like malicious attempt to do something on prompt level, then their system would be able to flag it and flag the user and also block the prompt, which you can build in yourself, but it was more so like a platform for transparency and ratings and so on. So I believe that their angle was like, okay, we want everybody to use this, and then eventually we get a marketplace of trustworthy actors within a system based off like their score of how well their setup is and what their master prompts are like and so on, and just like have it so that it's, you know, there's no malicious stuff going on um, in general. So that was something which is, in my opinion, pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've actually never heard of this. I mean, this is, I guess, like 4 or 5 weeks back, there was this big report on how you have these massive vulnerabilities in these big repos, like, for example, from Eliza OS, where you have tons of plugins, and those plugins can do all kinds of attacks on your agent because you kind of are just asking them to share data with you, and this data can be poisoned, and you can have new prompts here. So that's kind of what I first thought of when you said prompt firewall, which would be pretty cool if you can stop these injection attacks and kind of outside prompts overriding your own prompt. But I don't know if that's the whole idea.
Yeah, yeah, it's something in that direction indeed. I've been thinking about it too. Um, yeah, there's so many kind of like really, really interesting business models here as well, you know. It's like everybody's thinking about building, you know, core infrastructure and frameworks and so on. But there's also a lot of side business, you know. It's like literally like the agent that checks the agent, you know, like the agent that checks the contract, the agent that checks this and that, and that helps you to mitigate like potential issues. But then again, obviously, it's going to become very complex with many bells and whistles and so on. Maybe protocol level security is still the best. I wanted to ask Kate and Radu, like, was there anything on your mind that you wanted to bring up or discuss? We still have a couple of minutes left.
Um,
Hmm.
nothing really from my side.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know with roll-ups, is there a way to see sort of the most discussed topics in the course of, let's say, this past week?
Yeah, yeah, it is. If you go to rollup.news and you see the trending topics, those are the topics that are hot for the past like 24 to 48 hours. And you can click on them. And then if you click on it, like a new feed will open with just like those topics. And then like they're ranked according to popularity, and that's currently all that there is. If you want to change the tag to something custom, you need to change the URL. There's nothing on the interface, so you can, you know, there's like hashtag tag is if once you click on one of the tags, and then you can write something else, like for example like Trump or tariffs or something like that, and you can filter by tag. But what we are going to do, which is pretty cool, is we're going to allow our users sooner or later to curate their own feeds. So you can just like click on either topics and filters and accounts that you want to kind of like filter out. Because I just found that the X experience in terms of timelines is so horrible. Like I see posts all the times which I don't really want to see, and I've been dying to find a way for me to be able to curate and to like really see what's going on, what are the really hot topics in certain segments and categories. Like, you know, like I had this idea, like, why don't we just create a dashboard which filters the entire Trump administration and then monitors them? And then like something else, like the anti-Trump administration, you know, like who's on that camp, and like make a group out of those people and create a custom feed and do analysis on it. And then like get our, you know, like the top 100 you know, like projects in a certain sector, and you know, see what they're talking about. So this newsfeed aggregation is something which I think is going to be pretty cool, especially once they can go beyond just Twitter, but also, you know, Reddit, Facebook, and so on. And you can just plug in like accounts and monitor them on an ongoing basis. And then this Gen AI aspect to it is really cool, where, you know, like we have a prototype where you can see what are the current narratives. So you see a pie chart of the narratives, and you click on the narratives, you get a summary, you see all of the people that are talking about that certain thing, what are they saying, what are the hot topics, and then like all the way to the granular roll up level. Eventually you can go into the details. So yeah, that's something we're working on.
Nice. I mean, for me, the thing that worked was just banning Trump and Musk. And it's already
Bro,
so
I
much.
banned Musk and he's still showing up all the time.
Oh, wow, I never see his post though.
So did you just unfollow or did you like literally like
No, actually block. Yeah.
block? Oh, block. Oh, I didn't do that. I should do
Yeah.
that.
Unfollowing is not enough.
Yeah, he's like in your face. Yeah, I see we have 2 speaker requests. I'm gonna let up you guys, Frosty Flakes and Eyes. I'm gonna let you up. You can ask a question and we can answer probably only one. If we have enough time, we'll do 2. Frosty Flakes, you can go first. I just gave you speaker. I'm not sure if you just withdrew it. Oh yeah, there you go. You can ask a question.
Hey guys, love this space. Love to be here. It's always nice to be refreshed in the AI space, especially as a AI builder. Definitely, like I definitely agree with the privacy points, and just wanted to gather your thoughts on like projects that are building that use more local LLMs for like really real world cases. So you got like some new frameworks in crypto, in addition to what Swarm is doing, like Eliza. I'm currently building out one called Somi, that try to accomplish real world tasks, avoid data sharing out there. What do you guys think about these frameworks? And what do you expect from them moving forward, especially like in terms of privacy? Like, would you guys use them and those things?
It depends. I mean, I think we've chatted about this. Like, if every one of your users actually runs the LLM locally, I don't know how that's going to work. But then, of course, then it is private. But if, again, you're building a solution that's local for you, but you have users that utilize your solution, then it's, of course, not local, right?
True, true. I see what you mean. The idea is like like you rightfully said earlier, all these APIs, all these different companies, they just make it more and more complex to integrate. Like you want this feature, you want that feature. Um, so it's definitely difficult as a builder in the space to take advantage of all these new emergents. Because I was gonna do orchestration, but then they came out with agent to agent, so now I have to explore that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Honestly, like even me, like playing around with all kinds of frameworks, it's super complicated. But yeah, I mean, to go back to your question, for me, there's mainly like 2 ways to achieve privacy with all of these things, and the first is actually running everything locally. So hopefully, we will soon have LLM capable GPUs that anyone can run at home. You don't need, I don't know, 3 or 4 Mac Minis. Um, and the alternative, and that's obviously what Oasis is working on, is confidential compute via trusted execution environments, because there you kind of generate this secure area on a GPU. So whoever owns the GPU or kind of owns the model cannot mess with the input data, output data. Everything can be encrypted. That's kind of the 2 ways for me.
That's pretty awesome. If you could probably send a link or post it here so I could do some more reading, and if people in the chat could also take a look at it, because those things help us a lot, especially as builders moving forward, especially those who are like privacy centric. Because my framework is actually aimed at, so my background is actually physician in healthcare, and we have a lot to overcome. So I'm trying to make a dementia agent uh, for cognitive rehabilitation for early mild to moderate dementia. And one of the challenges we have is dementia patients need memory storage. So persistent memory is easy to accomplish, but the issue is privacy. These people store a lot of memories, and you don't want to use an API like ChatGPT out there that's gonna they have like access to their stuff, right? You want it to be private. So doing it in a private LLM is easy, But then one of the issues was I wanted to do orchestration. So this agent could speak to that person's agent, who could speak to the next person in the dementia home. But so now there's agent to agent. So I would definitely love to read what you're up to, Marco. It would definitely help me a lot. And good space, guys. Before I hop off, I appreciate it. Love seeing you guys. Thanks.
I I love what you're building, man. That's a really honest and epic use case. I wish you the best of luck, and thank you very much for your question. Cool. Yeah. Um, there's no more other requests. I saw a bunch of comments, but we're gonna keep them for the next space as we have reached our end of this session. Kate, Radu, thank you very much for joining us. We hope to have you back somewhere in the future. And Marco, as always, thank you for being an awesome co-host. Really enjoyed this session again.
Thank you, guys.
Great session. Bye, all.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye, guys.